Hey guys, it's Upa here. So today it's Tuesday and they've released the information for the upcoming legendary hero Kallana. So Kallana is expected to come out on Friday as the new characters always do. And let's take a look at the new character together. So she's from the Foresters faction and support type and green mark. So yeah, her character design looks pretty good so far and definitely fitting of the Foresters faction. Foresters does already have some pretty strong characters and I'm sure this character will be a pretty good addition for it. So if we take a look at what's already in the Foresters faction, we already have some pretty strong heroes like Mori, Imakado, Jingle Bell, slightly outdated but still very good. And we also have Ronai for PvP, a bit outdated now but still a good character. And yeah, so I think this is a good faction for a new character to be added to because there are some strong heroes but not as insane or overly strong as some other factions we have, like Unruly Outlaws, where basically every character here is amazing, and Sagacity Alliance, where there are so many strong characters here as well. So I like when they do add new characters into older factions which are not as strong. And let's take a look at her skills. So her basic attack is Full Bloom and deals direct damage by 15% of her max HP to a single enemy and reduces the target's turn meter by 18%. So I think this damage is not really that significant, but this turn meter reduction by 18% is actually really nice to have. So it reminds me of Space, who does something very similar, and I just want to compare the values that they do. So let's see, Space does 25% reduction, 15 plus 10 here, and in fact she does an additional 10% reduction on an exclusive one. So this is quite surprising that Space actually does 35% reduction in turn meter, and she's such an old character, and that's compared to Kallana, who's only at 18%. But still a very strong effect to have on a basic attack. Next we have Flower of Hope, her special 2, not her passive, excuse me. So her special 2 grants all allies Flower Bud for 3 turns, and this reduces direct damage taken by 40%. And this effect is considered as Consolidation and cannot be stacked with Consolidation itself. So this is quite strange. I'm not really sure why they would name this buff as Flower Bud when it's exactly the same as Consolidation and it can't even stack. So I guess this is just to fit the theme of this Forester's character. But yeah, the Consolidation buff is definitely very strong, especially when it comes to PvP content. Afterward, restores all allies' HP by 14% of her own max HP and cleanses all damage over time debuffs from that. So the cleanse damage over time debuff seems to be pretty strong as well for PvP. Not very useful if she ends up being used in Marie teams, since you're gonna be basically immune to damage over time anyway. But if she's being used in other teams, this cleanse all damage over time debuffs is going to be very strong. Next, her passive. When entering a battle, if self has more than 1000 points of speed, so you already do get basically 1000 speed even without leveling the character or putting any gear, so this essentially is something you're always going to hit. Then for every 1 point exceeding 1000, self gains 80 extra points of health up to 160,000 points. So hopefully we can calculate this on the spot. So for every 1 point exceeding 1000, you can gain 80. So I believe you need 3000 speed to hit this max amount, and this is 160,000 additional health when you're at 3000 speed. And honestly, this 160,000 isn't that significant, but it might be useful to help her survive certain thresholds when facing Apsara teams. Against Apsara teams, you do kind of want to have as much health as you can, so hopefully you don't get one shot by the recorded damage. So not extremely strong, but I think this will be still very nice to have. And when self takes damage from enemies proactively cast basic attacks or skills, other allies will counteract the caster once. So basically, when an enemy proactively attacks you, you can cast Ben Austin's special 4 on that enemy hero. And this does seem very strong. I think the best use case for this will probably be it will allow you to break the Nicolith Shelter of Faith buff. So if you don't know what Nicolith does, one of the buffs it does is when your allied heroes reach a certain threshold of damage taken, they will stop taking damage for that turn. So I think having Kallana in your team and having this effect will allow you to trigger enemy Nicoliths which does have that buff, and that means that subsequently when you do take your turn, you will be able to bypass that buff and kill the enemy hero instantly. So this seems like a really strong buff to have. And for every one ally with the poison tag deployed, increase all allies' poison damage dealt by 15%. So this seems more like a PvE related buff. Definitely nice to have if you run her with heroes like Giselle in PvP, but I don't believe this is very significant. And now her special 4. So deals poison damage based on her max HP. Once again, I don't believe her damage is going to be anything significant, but she does have a 100% chance to inflict deep poisoning. So once again, a more PvE oriented buff, but this definitely will still be useful, like I said, if she's used with characters like Giselle or maybe Willa in PvP content. So once again, just another nice to have for PvP. And afterwards, use 8% speed from non-boss enemies and caps at 8% of initial speed, and each target can be stolen 2 times. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So assuming that you have Kallana with 3000 speed, since 3000 is the required amount for this max health buff, you will be able to steal about 240 speed from enemies, which is actually quite a large amount, and it says that it can be stolen 2 times, so you can steal up to 480 speed from enemies. So that's actually a really significant amount. And she also gains 20% of the stolen speed, so she will get 96 speed in total. So she'll remove 480 speed from enemies and she herself will gain 96 speed. So this is definitely a really strong skill, especially for PvP content. And yeah, extremely strong, as turn meter related effects are all really important to have in PvP. So let's take a look at her exclusives, which I'm sure are all extremely strong. Let's take a look. So exclusive 1. The following effects can be triggered once respectively during each wave. After casting Flower of Hope, which I believe is her special 2, she will cast Fluttering Petals one more time, so special 4, and after casting her special 4, cast special 2 one more time. So yep, definitely nice to have, and good for both PvP and PvE. So she's just going to have a really high uptime with her skills in the start of the fights, and it will definitely work very well together, because let's say you use her in PvP, on your first turn you get both this consolidation buff, and you will also steal speed from the enemy, so very strong. And when Kallana's turns and she casts Full Bloom one more time on the enemy who has dealt the highest damage currently. So Full Bloom is her basic, and yeah, it will reduce the target's turn meter. So very, very turn meter oriented character, and in terms of both buffing her own speed and debuffing enemies. And that kind of reminds me of Space a ton. Next, for exclusive 2, Flower of Hope. So special 2 will also increase allies' turn meter by 15%. So yeah, once again, this is very similar to Space. I believe Space has this in her special 4, where she increases turn meter by 20% or 30% for exclusives, but this will be even stronger since she can use it twice in 2 turns using this exclusive 1 ability, and cleanses all control effects from them. So her special 2 is actually extremely strong in terms of utility. You increase your team's turn meters by 15%, you get consolidation, and you also heal, cleanse debuffs, and cleanse damage over time as well. So basically cleanses everything from the team, so really strong. And deduct 70% of the current shield value of all shield owned by enemies first, and capping at 100% of Kallana's max HP. So capping at 100% of Oh, I see. So if you have really high health on Kallana, like for instance like 1,000,000 health, then she can deduct 70. Then you can actually just deduct up to however much health she has, but it will depend on the enemy's health. So this is going to be really strong against Sun Wukong teams, especially because that shield can be really annoying to bypass, and this deduction doesn't even take into account any damage reduction effects which the enemy might have. So this looks to be extremely strong. And after anyone's turn starts, when an ally steals attributes from an enemy, increases Kallana's turn meter by 10% and can only be triggered once per turn. So I'm not sure if this is going to apply to herself as well, because if it does, then her special fall is going to be so extremely strong. But I think there is a chance, even if this doesn't apply to herself, it's still a very strong effect. And lastly, we have her exclusive tree. So for every one ally with the attribute Steal tag deployed, and I don't believe this is a tag currently in the game, you can double check. And I don't believe that we have an attribute Steal. Yeah, we do not. So it seems like this is a new tag that's going to be added the next update, and seems to be the direction of characters that they will be releasing in the near future. So focus on this attribute Steal mechanic, and reduces all allies' basic attack damage and skill damage taken by 15%. So this is insanely strong. So depending on how many allies you have with this Steal tag, you can reduce up to 15 times 5, so that will be 75% of basic attack damage and skill damage taken reduction. And if that's the case, 75% reduction will be so ridiculous. And even if it only applies for allies and not Kallana herself, that will be 60% basic attack and skill damage reduction, and that probably will create a new meta team for sure with the amount of damage reduction you get. But right now, I don't think we have many attribute Steal characters, so this team will probably take a while to form as more characters are being released. Anyway, when 5 allies with the attribute Steal tag are deployed, so yeah, when you have a full team, which probably will happen in PvP eventually, Kallana and the ally with the highest initial attack gain Flower Protection, which blocks all control effects. So I guess the strength of this will also depend on how strong the remaining attribute Steal characters are. If the other characters have some sort of mechanic which will help you bypass control effects anyway, then this won't really mean much, but otherwise this is a really strong buff to have. And at the beginning of each wave, increase Kallana's turn meter by 30%. So this 30% value is the same as Apsara, I believe. And that's a good thing, because it means that when you have a speed matchup between Apsara and Kallana, it's only going to boil down to their initial speed. So yeah, you can see Apsara also has a very similar effect where it increases her turn meter by 30%. So whoever goes first when it comes to Apsara versus Kallana is solely going to be based on their initial speeds. So how do I feel about this character? She does seem extremely strong for PvP content, especially with all her turn meter related buffs and debuffs. So I think the best part about her kit is definitely her. Well, it's both the exclusive 2 and exclusive 3. So the exclusive 2 definitely makes her so annoying to face, because she just gives her teammates 15% turn meter and also essentially makes your shields worthless, and also increases her own turn meter even more. So this is extremely strong. She's going to be able to take so many turns, especially since she also can steal speed. And when more attribute Steal characters are released, this exclusive tree is going to be absolutely broken. I'm very sure of it, and I think maybe in a month or two from now, when we get to see the remaining attribute Steal characters, this passive is going to be a problem. Up to 75% reduction in basic attack damage and skill damage taken. So I think overall, Kallana is going to be seriously strong in PvP content, maybe not right now, but when we do see more attribute steal characters being implemented, I have no doubt in my mind that once we are able to create a proper PvP attribute steal team, she's going to be at the core of the team in terms of survivability, and it's going to be a nightmare to face. So yeah, unsurprising considering that it's a new character that she's extremely strong. Whether I recommend that you summon for her, I wouldn't recommend that you do so because she's not a limited time hero, and if you're a free-to-play player, you should always be saving your miracles and gems for the new limited time hero. And speaking of which, we do have a new limited time hero coming fairly soon. So now this isn't a completely accurate gauge, but it has been accurate in the past. You can roughly tell whether there's a new limited time hero coming based on this timer in Wuthering Coast. So in roughly 33 days, we can expect a limited time hero to release. So be sure to save your miracle summons and gems until then. But yeah, I think once again, I think she's a pretty strong character. She's going to be extremely strong in PvP. Exclusive 2 and 3 are really huge for her, but we will still have to see the future attribute steal characters before a proper team will be formed with her. And yeah, hopefully this gives you some clarity as to what she does and her strength. And of course, some of the things I said in terms of her strength may not be true. We always have to test the characters when they actually come out. So perhaps once the character releases, when we have more info, I'll do a quick update and we can see together how accurate my evaluation for Kallana was. And that's all I have for today. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.